Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Last time I finished up this game, for real this time, hopefully I won't have to come back to it, but we'll see what the future holds. And this time, it's gonna be a pretty average bonus video. I'm gonna talk about a bunch of stuff that was in the game that was only given to me after I completed DLC Pack 2, and also just a bunch of stuff I couldn't talk about in the moment or just forgot to talk about in the moment. So again, it's your pretty average bonus video. But first things first, I'm going to be very upfront with you. There will not be gameplay until the very specific timestamp. Can't even get through the very beginning of this video without messing up. A timestamp will appear on screen right now. That's when gameplay will actually start. Keep in mind you will be skipping past a majority of the video if you skip to that timestamp, so I'd recommend not doing that. But hey, if you just want to see the Master Cycle Zero and get on out of here, be my guest. But without further ado, let's hop right in. First things first, I really never had to go into a lot of the areas that had the DLC Pack 2 armor sets, so I never went out of my way to get them. Therefore, there are a lot of DLC armor sets from Pack 2 that you never saw. Which seems to be the case with a lot of the armor sets from the DLC. I just didn't get a lot of them, but whatever. More importantly, the first piece of armor that I did actually get and was shown off in the Let's Play was the Royal Guard's armor. I like it a lot. I like the color blue a lot. Blue's actually my favorite color, despite what the channel art may make you think, or the channel icon, rather. But yeah, I like blue a lot. It's very good. And this has a nice deep color of blue, and the design itself is just very interesting. I like it a lot. That's why I actually went to go get it, and it was also kind of on the way, so I decided, why not? Something that I also really enjoy, but I never went to go get, is a little bit more in line with the color of my channel icon. It's Ravio's hood! Get it? 'Cause it's purple anyway. More importantly, I really do like this hood. I like the game it's associated with. I kind of wanted to go get it, but oh my god, is it out of the way. It is really out of the way, so I never did that. Similarly, Phantom Ganon's armor, which is also pretty cool. It's kind of my least favorite armor of this set, I'm gonna be honest. I don't like the way it makes you look. The proportions seem a bit odd to me, but that's probably just me. Maybe I'm just used to seeing Phantom Ganon being really tall and stuff like that, but whatever. The point is, I don't like this set that much, and it is kind of a little bit more out of the way than the Ravio hood, so I definitely wasn't considering even getting this one. So, there it is. And the last piece of armor is the Zant's hood, which I again, don't like that much. I apparently really don't like the armor sets that are based upon Zelda enemies for whatever reason. I just don't get it. But Zant's hood just doesn't look good to me. It doesn't really go well with any other armor sets. It's just kind of there, and kind of ugly. But hey, that's just me. That's all the armor sets that were introduced in DLC Pack 2. I like about half of them, dislike about half of them. So I really like 2. I really just am kind of about the last 2. So I'd say that's kind of a net positive. But hold on! There's more interesting information than that. All of that could have been found if you played the game yourself, but there are things out there that you may not have known about even if you did play this game 100%. And I think what I'm going to start off with first is a little bit of the development of the game. Breath of the Wild felt like it took forever and a day to come out. And the reason for this is not because it actually did take longer to develop than the other Zelda games, not really. It got delayed about as many times as Twilight Princess, or at least from what I've heard from other people. I was not a Zelda fan when Twilight Princess came out, but more importantly, it felt like a long time. And one of the things that added to that was the amount of hype that Nintendo was actually building for this game. The HD Zelda experience was kind of hinted to us a long time ago, back at E3 2011. There was this tech demo, and despite the fact that tech demos are consistently said to be, well, tech demos, they're meant to show off how powerful a system can be, people still took that as the next Zelda game is in development, this is what the next Zelda game might look like, hopefully will look like, things like that, and it made the wait feel significantly longer than it actually was. We were waiting from 2011 all the way to 2017. It took kind of a while if you consider the tech demo as the beginning of the development, despite the fact that it wasn't, but people still thought it was. The point is it made it feel like a longer wait than it actually was. Later on down the line, in 2013, we actually got the announcement that the next Zelda game was being worked on, and after that, in 2014, we got our first trailer of the game, technically. It's the first video we had ever seen of it, and that was when we first learned that, oh my gosh, this is going to be a significantly different Zelda experience. It was the one with the Guardian and Link riding on the horse. He pulls out the bow and arrow, shoots that Guardian right in the eye. It's a work of art. It really is. It was a really good trailer, and it built up hype for this game insanely well. And later in 2014 at the Game Awards, we got some gameplay, which is insanely interesting to look at. The reason this video is so interesting to watch is because there are so many mechanics that just go unused in the final game that you can see readily and easily here. For example, the one that everyone seems to notice is the magic meter, or at least that's what everyone says it is. I believe this is kind of a crude version of the stamina meter, or at least the magic meter would work as a stamina meter to an extent. The reason I say this is because when Link pulls out his, not paraglider, his sailcloth. Because in this demo version of the game, Link used the sailcloth from Skyward Sword, not the paraglider we get in the final game. But the point is, when he pulls out his sailcloth, you'll notice that the magic meter starts to deplete slightly. It's kind of an interesting fact. I don't know, not a lot of people pointed that out, but I think that's what the actual use of the magic meter was. It was essentially a pseudo version of the stamina wheel that we ended up getting in the final game. So there's that. There's also a lot of gamepad features that just don't get used because, again, this was ported to the Nintendo Switch, so goodbye gamepad features. I mean, they were pretty cool. You could zoom in on the map and look down at it on the gamepad. That would have been really nice to have in the final version of the game, but hey, what are you going to do? And also, something much, much smaller, but something I noticed immediately, is Link's walking animation. It's different. Really, really different. And I don't know, whenever I think of this video, I always think of Link's walking animation. And I don't know why, it's just the thing that stood out to me the most, the fact that his walking animation looked so significantly different. I don't know. It's something that stood out to me, but didn't stand out to a lot of other people. The final version of the game has a much smoother walking animation, but this one just, I don't know, it has its own charm to me. And maybe that charm comes from the fact that this is an incomplete version of the game, and I'm always charmed by incomplete versions of games. They just interest me, they fascinate me so much. But, I don't know. I kinda like it a little bit. It has a special place in my heart, but it does look significantly worse than the one we got in the end. But anyway, more importantly, after that, the development kind of settled down. There wasn't actually a lot going on. The original release date was 2015, that got pushed back to 2016, which obviously got pushed back to 2017. During that time, we got one E3 demo, and it's a kiosk demo as well, so if you go to an area where you can try out the Switch, the demo that you can play for Breath of the Wild will be exactly the same as the demo that could be played at E3. But the point is, it resembles the final game we got pretty well. There's really not a lot going on there, and there's not much to talk about. The rest of the development was pretty normal. But during that 2015 to 2017 year period, Nintendo didn't leave Zelda fans high and dry. We got information periodically through Nintendo Directs, and I want to talk about how much I love the ad campaign for this game, even though it's not really an ad campaign. It's more of the Nintendo Direct campaign they did, where they showed off different trailers, not every Nintendo Direct, but periodically, and it was insanely well done. It really was. I'm going to bring up Super Smash Bros. For a minute, because I think this is a good comparison. Smash Bros. Showed off every single character you could possibly unlock before the game came out, and they showed off almost all the features that the game had before it came out. And while I think Smash is inherently a different game, I really didn't like the fact that they showed everything off. I didn't. There was no surprise going into the game. I feel no desire to actually unlock every single character. That's why, despite the fact that I got the game at Christmas, and now it's, the second month of the new year, I have yet to unlock every single character. It's because I don't feel like I need to. I've already seen a bunch of the characters. You know, I don't really feel a desire to unlock them all. But Breath of the Wild does something differently. And again, it's an inherently different game, but Zelda held back a lot of information but showed just enough to the point where it got you interested. It was a really delicate balancing act that was done extremely well. There was enough shown off to the point where you were still, again, interested, but it left enough up in the air for it to be a mystery. If you jumped on to the Legend of Zelda series late into the game on Breath of the Wild, then you probably won't understand why all of the information that was shown off the Nintendo Directs was so hype-inducing. But the reason for that is because whenever even snippets of information were shown off, people freaked out. And whenever we got new information about the game or a new trailer, everyone freaked out because we didn't know what they were going to show. And I don't know, it was just a very interesting time. And it was really, really fun to watch all those trailers and be a part of the community when that was happening. I don't know, it's a very special emotion for me. And if you kind of, again, jumped on the Legend of Zelda franchise on Breath of the Wild and you didn't watch any of the trailers beforehand, you just saw the game came out one day and you're like, cool, I'll try it, then you definitely won't understand this emotional baggage that those trailers held. It was some crazy stuff, and I don't know, it just made me really excited for the game. That's why I wanted to talk about. Kind of mini rant over. Rant's kind of negative, though. Mini talk over. I don't know where this was going. This was all unscripted, so whatever. Well, actually, this entire thing is unscripted, so I don't know why I brought up that specific part being unscripted. All of this is just in the moment, so. Anyway, more importantly, concept art is something I've talked about a lot over the course of time. Especially in this playthrough, because I've always been planning on talking about the concept art that this game has from the very beginning. And, well, we're finally at that time. Concept art is something I've always been an avid fan of. I go out of my way to find any concept art I possibly can, and I recently purchased Creating a Champion. That's a book created by Dark Horse Entertainment, and it just talks about a lot of the developmental process of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And, fun fact, it shows off a lot of concept art. So, I'm going to be going over a few things I found in the book recently and I found interesting. Just to kind of get it out of the way right now, I have not gone through all 424 pages of the book. I read a little bit of it yesterday. I got to like page 124, I think it was. 147. Sorry, my bad. And I'm going to be going over a few of the smaller things that kind of interested me, while a few of the other pictures that I'm not going to be talking about play in the background. So, essentially, I'm just going to be showing off a lot of concept art, and I'll talk about the pieces that I find to be the most interesting. I should probably also mention the fact that I am going to be talking about actual finalized artwork as well. I was mainly harping on concept art, and while that is going to be what I focus on a lot, I am going to talk about a bunch of different artwork as well. This isn't necessarily going to be strictly about concept artwork. So, let's get right into it. There's a lot of beautiful artwork for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, some of which was actually released on social media and nowhere else. For example, there's a lot of seasonal artwork. There's actually quite a bit of it. I think there's about around 4 pictures. One for Christmas, one for Thanksgiving, one for Halloween, as well as one for, what's the last one? It's slipping my mind. The New Year, that's right. One for the New Year. All of which are very beautiful. It's a very interesting art style. It's kind of simplistic. Think the Link's Awakening remake, but obviously more detail there, and less plastic, but hey, whatever. There's also a lot of artwork which I don't see shown very often. For example, one about a snowstorm where Link is stabbing the Master Sword into the ground to walk through a snowstorm. It's extremely interesting. I like it a lot. There's also artwork for release dates. When we finally got the finalized release date for Breath of the Wild, this wasn't the 2016 or 2015 release date, it was the 2017 release date. They showed it off with artwork accompanying it, and it was beautiful. It is beautiful. It's really, really well done. I like it a lot. There's also a lot of concept art that shows off Link and what Link could have been. He was going to end up being a rocker of some kind, and it's very interesting to look at, strictly because this is so different from what we've seen from the Zelda franchise, and it's also kind of weird that they chose to go for a rocker, and the reason I bring this up is because of the fact that there were also a lot of other concept art pieces that were based upon the whole idea of someone who enjoys rock, and I think it was Pura who had some concept art that showed off a rock-esque design. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. I don't know who on the developmental team was like so fixated on this concept of having rockers in Breath of the Wild, but there was someone in there who was really into it, I guess. So that's fine. There's also something called Hyrule Wars. I don't actually know what's going on here. It just looks like your very basic, basic Breath of the Wild screenshot. Not a lot going on. Maybe it was meant to be a war between the different races. Race war starts now. I don't know, but it certainly is trial and error concept art. There's also something called Invasion. It's just titled Invasion, and this is insanely interesting to look at just because it'd be so interesting if Zelda went in this direction. And now, don't get me wrong, we've kind of been here before, specifically with Majora's Mask. Alien invasions aren't necessarily something that's super foreign to the Zelda franchise, but if there was an entire game focused around it, that would be kind of interesting. I don't know, it'd be odd. It'd be definitely a little bit odd. Also, on the topic of this concept art, you might notice that on the right, there's actually a picture of a manga page. And this is kind of concept art that doesn't get talked about too often. They made a manga page that was meant to kind of simulate the idea that, you know, there was an alien invasion, and there's Ganondorf standing next to Rocker Link, because Rocker Link was apparently Invasion at one point. I don't know. That must have been at a different time in development, but yeah, it's Ganondorf and Link standing next to each other with this old man, and they're dissecting an alien. It's special. Certainly special. And going back to the rocker design for Link, while that was probably one of the most interesting design concepts that came out for him, there was actually a lot more that we will never get to see. It was specifically stated in the Creating of a Champion book that there were so many hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds, maybe 100 or so designs for Link that were shown off and presented during development, and some of them are just never going to be seen, you know? It's just interesting to think that there are a lot of different designs out there for Link that are technically official that will never, ever be seen by the light of day. I don't know, it's kind of neat. Skipping around a little bit, there's some artwork for the Legend of Zelda concert of 2018. It's extremely interesting. It has Skyward Sword Zelda, Ocarina of Time Link, and Breath of the Wild Link, all in the Breath of the Wild style. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. I like it a lot. It does some really, really cool stuff. I really, really enjoy it. I don't know, that's just me being really into the art style of Breath of the Wild again, but I think it's really awesome to see different characters within this style, and I'm glad they had this artwork for a concert. It looks great, and I also don't know why Link is playing Cass's instrument, but hey, they needed an instrument somewhere, so that's fine. There's also some first anniversary artwork, which it's very beautiful. There's a lot of different art pieces like this where it just has the Master Sword and light shining down on it, but this one just does a fantastic job of just portraying the art style of the game. And the watercolor really shines through there. I don't know, it's really, really beautiful. I like it a lot. But moving on. There's some artwork that I hadn't seen until doing some research for this video, and that's actually the case a lot because, or a lot for this video rather, because Creating a Champion has a lot of artwork which I have never seen circulating online. It is not on the Zelda Wiki, whatever it's called, the Zelda Wiki Gallery, which is a compilation of a bunch of artwork from the game, from Breath of the Wild specifically. So I didn't see any of this artwork there. I haven't seen it talked about on social media really, minus a few of the things I'm going to talk about, specifically the Mipha artwork, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But most importantly, this Wolf Link artwork, which is technically not Wolf Link, it's just a normal wolf, is so interesting for me to look at. And not only because it's just adorable, look at this. Bringing up the Link's Awakening design choices again. It looks really, really good. And also, Wolf Link, or the wolf that's here rather, I keep saying Wolf Link because it was under the Wolf Link concept art page, and I apologize for that. But the wolf that was shown here, while being a similar concept to Wolf Link, and while Wolf Link is a very similar idea, this is technically an unused concept. The reason I say this is because this wolf wasn't meant to just help you in combat, quote-unquote, help you in combat. This wolf was meant to be somewhat of a navigator that would help you around the world. Seeing this is just really, really interesting, and thinking about how there would have been a wolf or a dog that would walk around with you and show you the way to go and show you where secrets are and just be an overall great navigator. That would have been super neat to see. And, I don't know. I just really found this concept art to be super interesting, more than any other concept art I've really seen in the Creating of a Champion book. It's really, really cool. Speaking of really cute concept arts, Zelda has some really nice designs. This one specifically is my favorite. I really enjoy, I don't know, the hair itself, how poofy it is. I kind of like it. It's pretty cool. I enjoy it a lot. That's really all I have to say about it. It kind of reminds me of Skyward Sword Zelda for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's kind of got a softer look, if that makes any sense. But whatever. Moving on. And I also talked about Mipha concept art previously, and I'm going to bring that right back up because here's the Mipha concept art. I think it's really nice. I really enjoy the fish that it's based off of. It's really pointy. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I just think I kind of do wish they went for this in the final version of the game. But hey, that's just me. I just really think it looks super cool, and I think it's super cute at the same time. It's like a very distinct design that would have differentiated her from the other Zoras, but hey, you know, whatever. That's perfectly fine. They ended up going with what they went with, and I do think it was a very solid design that they ended up going for, but I just think that would have differentiated her a little bit more from other Zoras, but whatever. I am not a game designer. I can't say what they should have gone for. I can just say what I kind of wish they went for. With the concept art out of the way, we're finally getting into some of the things that actually do pertain to the game. First and foremost, we're going to go over a kind of a side quest I just never did because I never found time for it. I was always saying I was going to do it, and I really do love this side quest in the game. It's one of the only good ones in the game, actually. But I never ended up doing it. So, let's talk about Tarrytown. There's this guy named Hudson who's part of the Balston Construction Company, and he started to create his own town after he left. And I never talked to him again. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I really am. Okay, hold on, wait. I just want to mention this really quickly. I wrote the notes for this bonus video a while ago, and I've only added kind of things periodically over time, and I don't really go back to check my original notes. So when I got to Tarrytown, and I wrote this a while ago, and I realized I forgot to talk about Tarrytown a while ago. I just wrote, "Go over Tarrytown, you coward," in my notes, and I don't know, that was funny to me. Man, I'm so sorry, Hudson. I genuinely am. I really am. Essentially, his side quest just makes you find people from every single race that exists in Breath of the Wild whose names end in Sun, because apparently he hates people who don't have names that end in Sun, or at least he won't let them live in his town. But he will, because people whose names don't end in Sun end up living in his town anyway. Whatever. I don't know. I don't care. Hudson's his own man. He does what he wants. But essentially, what makes this side quest so interesting, for me at least, is the fact that you get to watch this town get built and watch Hudson's life change for the better. It's an extremely interesting thing. And that's not even mentioning one of the most intricate parts about this side quest: the music of Tarrytown. As different races come into Tarrytown, for example, let's go with a Zora, an instrument will also come from Zora's domain with it. Therefore, the music will continue to get better and better as new instruments are added, until you finally get every single race that you can get into Tarrytown. That's a Zora, a Goron, a Gerudo, and a Rito. And once all those races are in Tarrytown, the music becomes what it was truly meant to be. The song originally starts off as this really basic melody and becomes something extremely great and catchy. It's like a melting pot. Think about the United States. It's like a melting pot. There's a bunch of different races in there, and the music just really does a great job of showing it. And I really like it a lot. It's a really small detail they didn't have to do, but it makes it feel so important. I don't know. It's a very, very interesting concept, and I'm glad they went along with it. Also, once Tarrytown is completely built, you'll be able to find someone there who will sell you very, very rare things. So, if you ever lose your Hylian shield, you'll be able to repurchase it from him for a kind of stupid amount of money, but the point is you can still repurchase your Hylian shield. You can't forever lose any items, to my knowledge. You can always find ways to get them back, and Tarrytown is a perfect example of that. If you ever lose your Hylian shield or a few other miscellaneous things, you can probably come back there and purchase them again without having to worry too much about them being gone forever. That's also another reason I wanted to bring this up, because it's kind of important. But let's get Tarrytown out of the way, because there's something else that's extremely important to talk about that I never did end up talking about. Back when DLC Pack 1 came out, I mentioned the Trial of the Sword and how I dislike it, and I also mentioned another mode that came out alongside Trial of the Sword, and I just didn't end up talking about it very much. That mode is Master Mode. One of the two major things that sold DLC Pack 1 was, again, Master Mode, a harder version of the original game. Now, what did Master Mode do to differentiate itself from the original game? There are a lot of different hard modes that have been used in Zelda before, for example, Hero Mode, where hearts don't drop, but if you know anything about Breath of the Wild, you'll obviously know that that same base concept that's used for Hero Mode won't work, because a lot of the mechanics that were used in older Zelda games were completely removed from Breath of the Wild. So what did they do to make this a harder mode of the game? Well, enemies have now moved up a level in strength. That also means that there is a new strength level added called Gold. There are some new enemy placements, like a golden Lynel, I think it might be a silver Lynel, I'm not sure, one of the two, is placed within the Great Plateau. Yes, the Great Plateau. And on top of all that, enemies regenerate health. So, that's fun. Now, with all that being said, I want to be upfront with you. I don't really like DLC Pack 1 all that much. I've already talked about my general disinterest in the Trial of the Sword, but I also don't really like Master Mode that much, and there's a few reasons for this. One of which being, I just don't want to replay Breath of the Wild again, which is more of a me issue, but I just feel like Breath of the Wild isn't one of those games that you can so easily go back and replay. It's pretty dang long, and I feel like a lot of people aren't going to want to abandon their main save file, and let me make this clear. Master Mode does act as a second save file. You don't have to delete your original save file in order to play Master Mode. It's its own different beast. It even has its own title screen, is what I'm trying to say. But I just don't feel like a lot of people will want to stop playing their main save file just so they can start it all over again and do all that work all over again. It's kind of a one and done for a few years type of game, to be honest. And Master Mode just doesn't appeal to me for that reason. But there's also a few other things that just kind of make me a little bit iffy on it. The fact that enemies have different levels of strength that are more difficult than before, that's perfectly fine. I also like the inclusion of gold enemies, that's pretty interesting. But I don't like the fact that they regenerate health. I know that makes things significantly more difficult, but it also limits the amount of options you have to tackle certain, well, enemy bases, stuff like that. I think one of the most interesting and fun parts of Breath of the Wild was the fact that you could find all these different ways to tackle a certain objective to use the least amount of resources possible. So you could be sneaky or you could just be upfront with it. Breath of the Wild's Master Mode kind of makes it so you have to be upfront with it, and there's this tactic you can do to make it so you don't have to be upfront with attacking enemies. You can essentially take pot shots with your bow and arrow to make them stop regenerating their health, because as long as some amount of damage is done to them, they won't begin to regenerate health immediately. It takes a little while, but if you just kind of leave them there, they'll begin to regenerate health. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, if you do a little bit of damage with an arrow, they will stop regenerating health, and it will kind of reset that timer. So there's that tactic, but I find that to be infinitely less interesting than doing a stealth tactic. And I don't know, it limits the amount of options you have for combat. And I think that was one of the most interesting parts about the combat in this game to begin with, the amount of variety you had. And they kind of take that away in Master Mode, which is why it doesn't sit too well with me. Overall, I don't think Master Mode is a bad mode by any means, it's just not something that fits my taste. I've seen a lot of people who have 100%ed Master Mode, and they found it to be really enjoyable. You know what? More power to you. I just don't think it's for me. So, that's about it. I'm not trying to say it's terrible, I'm just saying it takes away some of the parts that I thought were most fun about the base game. But with Master Mode out of the way, it's finally time for gameplay. So, I'll meet you in Breath of the Wild right now. Of course, as soon as I get back into the game, it starts raining, but more importantly, we have one rune to go over, and then that'll be it. That'll be the end of this video. So, let's go over it. After we beat Maz Koshia, we got a new rune. That rune being the Master Cycle 0. Now, I want to talk about the way that you summon the Master Cycle 0. Obviously, you just, press A. It acts as if you're just using any old rune where you just, press the L button, and then this... I don't know, this is kind of weird. The blue circle stays at a constant distance from you, and then you just press A and you summon it in. Now, this wasn't necessarily the way it was always going to be to summon this Master Cycle Zero, this beautiful motorcycle. Originally, it was thought to be that you were going to hold some form of ball, similar to the way that you hold food, and you would end up dropping it on the ground, and as soon as it stopped rolling, the Master Cycle Zero would spawn. But now, you just spawn it like a normal rune, like you're spawning in an amiibo, something like that. So it's pretty basic stuff, but there's something else I want to mention before we actually hop on it. You'll see that on the HUD, if you don't have Pro HUD turned on, you can actually see the fuel of the Master Cycle Zero. This thing is pretty neat. It goes faster than a horse. It kind of acts like a Mario Kart cart, where you press A to accelerate, you press B to brake. You can zero jump, whatever that means. I know that's not something akin to a Mario Kart cart, but you can jump. So that's cool. The jump kind of sucks, but hey, that's fine. And that's about it. It's just a faster moving horse. Except, it needs fuel. Now, how do you refuel the Master Cycle Zero? Well, what you do is not hop right back onto the Master Cycle Zero. What you do is you take, let's see, where are my materials? Right here. You take some amount of ancient gears, some form of ancient technology, and you drop it straight into the Master Cycle. That gets turned into fuel. This thing is kind of fuel inefficient, I'm gonna be honest. This type of fuel is relatively difficult to come across, and honestly, with the speed it's going, while it's nice and it gets you places faster, this is a little bit harder to control than a normal horse, so I just don't feel the desire to use it that often. I'd rather use a horse, and, you know, there are a few things that negate the positives of this. For example, you can summon this wherever, whenever, which is great, until you realize that there was actually, I don't believe it's a bridle, it's another form of horse armor, that allows you to summon horses to you as long as they have that armor on them just by pressing the whistle button. Horses go a pretty good speed as well, horses don't require fuel, it's just overall better to use horses than the Master Cycle Zero. And, you know, the Master Cycle Zero is cool and everything. You can see I'm pulling off all these sick tricks, and by sick tricks, I mean just jumping off ledges and not taking fall damage, and that's great. But, I don't know, it's just, there's no real reason to use the Master Cycle Zero, I'm gonna be honest. But, with that being said, that's about it. That's really the only thing that unlocked after we finished this DLC pack. And now that I'm kind of just riding around and having a good old time, I want to talk about just a few miscellaneous things. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that made this possible, that made this series possible. That goes to, I don't want to say your name. I'm going to put it on screen right now. I don't want to say your name. Not because it's, like, inappropriate or anything, but because I don't know how to say it and I don't want to butcher it. So, there you go. This guy creates fantastic music. He does a lot of Legend of Zelda themed music. And I used his music as my outro for this entire series so far, so, you know, that's great, or the entirety of the return to this series, rather. And I love his music a lot. It's really, really good. Moving on to the people who actually watch the series and comment from time to time. Thank you so much to Airhead. Thank you so much to Joe Bro Show. Thank you so much to Space Seals and Titanium Star. All of you are fantastic people, and I really appreciate you for checking out the series and being relatively consistent with commenting. It means a lot. It really does. Thank you so much to, I don't know, I don't usually say this enough. Thank you so much to Nintendo for creating this game. And that sounds weird, I know. Thank you so much for making something for me to buy. But after reading about a lot of the concepts that went into this, after reading about some of the development, I don't know, it means a lot that they would spend so many hours of their life just creating this for people to enjoy. It's kind of a cool thing. Other than that, thank you so much to Zelda Sounds and the Legend of Zelda Wiki, both of which are insanely important resources for anyone creating a Legend of Zelda playthrough. Zelda Sounds, you're doing God's work. Zelda Wiki, you're also doing God's work. A lot of my sound effects for this series came from that site, and a lot of the information that I couldn't find myself also came from the Zelda Wiki. So both of which are super awesome. We're done. I kind of want to talk about the fact that this series was really interesting for me to do, strictly because, you know, I had to return to a series that started off the channel, and I've been on this channel for over a year at this point. And it's just kind of interesting to see how times have changed, if you will. How my commentary style has altered over the course of time. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I did have to do a little bit of research into my own series before I actually started this back up, because I forgot a lot about what I did in the original series of Breath of the Wild. It was a very big series, and it was very experimental for me, so I did have to kind of slow down, and instead of just starting the series up again and just going forward immediately, I did have to watch a few of the episodes before and see what, I don't want to say features, what ideas I used in that series, and see if I could update them to my current style of playthroughs. For example, Baby Link. That thing. I mean, I feel weird calling him Baby Link, because I never actually refer to this type of text on screen by name usually, because there's just no point, but yeah, I usually just put text up on screen, and I used to have this sound from Majora's Mask play in the background, but then I altered it to be more Breath of the Wild based, stuff like that. I don't know, that was just kind of an example, and I don't know, it's been interesting to see how my content has changed over the course of time, but I think I don't want to make this drag out for too long. I've had a lot of fun with this series. Again, hopefully I won't have to come back to it, not because I didn't enjoy it, just because I don't want to have to start up this series again, and I don't know, it's just a simple fact of I've finished up what I want to do here. I don't want to have to be forced to come back to an extent, so you know, that's kind of where my mindset is right now. But that's it. Thank you for watching this episode of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Next time I upload something on the channel, it'll be about my next playthrough. But that's for next time. It's really gonna be kind of a hot series in my opinion. I'm gonna really like it. Cough cough, wink wink, nudge nudge. I've been talking about heat a lot when it comes to hints for this playthrough, or next playthrough, so it might have to do about with fire or something, but that was a very basic hint. I'll give you one more. People don't talk about this game very much anymore. People really don't. It's extremely short, therefore people don't do Let's Plays on it very often, but I'm gonna do a Let's Play on it, so cool beans. So, I'll see you then. I'm really bad at ending these things, but it was fun. Until then.
You raise me